MyMac Podcast 901. That's a lot of Macs.
And welcome, everyone, to the MyMac.com podcast. This is the first one after our 900th show, which makes it 901. That's kind of how numbering works. Apple, speaking of numbering, Apple just released their Q3 earnings for 2022. And while the company met expectations, that's about the long and short of it. Mac sales in particular were down about 20% year over year. And the biggest problem seems to be supply constraints and a lot of China's capacity out due to lockdowns enforced by the government. Most other companies, however, were in the same boat, with HP down about 27%. I think they were all pretty much down. And Gaz is still on walkabouts, and I am joined this week. See if I can do this. Oh, that was so smooth. I am joined this week by Mr. Karl Madden of the Mac and Forth podcast. Hello, Karl. How are you?
Yeah. How are you, sir? I'm very well. Thank you very much.
So you don't have COVID?
I've had COVID twice already.
I have been very, very lucky. I haven't had COVID. However, I did just have a stint in the hospital, which was not a whole lot of fun. Basically, did I ever tell you about this? I had cellulitis in my right leg, and it puffed up like twice as big as it normally is, and was all red and splotchy, and nice. It was actually, my wife was like, looked at my leg, and she was like, you got 102 fever, a red splotchy swollen leg, and I think we should probably go to the hospital. To which I was like, fine, bam. So ended up in the hospital for a week and got all kinds of medications. And also when I got out, and that's all I'll say about that, but when I got out, I cut my hair. This is the first MyMac podcast.
He's not a hippie anymore.
I am not a hippie anymore. I don't know what happened. Actually, I had actually been thinking about it before I went into the hospital, but being in the hospital cemented it, because the first time I went to take a shower, they had like a plastic bag on my left hand because that's where the IV was. And it was like trying to wash my hair with a brick in one hand. And it was like, well, this just isn't fun. So I went ahead and cut it. And who knows if I'll grow it long again. It's like my hair and microphone. So the two things that I seem to obsess over. I have a lack of one and too many of the other. So I got mine done as well. All this
I know.
I see that.
In the UK, it's all
gone. But you know what, Karl? Here's the thing. Yeah. You have hair on top of your head, and it is quite noticeable. I do not. I take off my hat, and it's like bald, which is why I wear hats a lot.
I was going to make a joke then, but it'd been highly inappropriate, so I won't.
Probably. I went to MacStock. That was last weekend. MacStock 6. And I was running the video board for Mike Potter. Basically, that meant I was just making sure things were being recorded and doing transitions between the two cameras that he had going. Except I ran into a little problem near the end of the day on both days. I'm on this new... No, well, that, yeah. But in front of the camera, there was plenty of talent. It was behind the camera that was the problem.
That's what I meant.
I'm on this blood pressure medicine, and it's making me really sleepy.
Oh, yeah.
And so at one point, I'm literally sitting in the chair, and I imagine my eyes are open, but nobody's home, as compared to other times. So there was like 15, 20 minutes of, and I don't remember whose presentation it was, where whatever camera that was looking at that presentation, that was the view they got, because I was like, but I'm on a different medication now, which I'm sure will be much better.
I hope so. I mean, I'm on blood pressure medication, and I drive for a living. So
really, yeah, that falling asleep is not a good thing.
That's why they put the barriers on the side of the motorway
to wake you up,
nudge you back in to the center.
So what have you been doing I haven't talked to you in a while. What are you up to?
Well, you banned me, didn't you? Oh no, no. We've been
So many people banned, but not you.
We have been sweltering over here in the UK because we've forgotten what hot weather is because we haven't had it for so long. But now it's back. I think the 70s was the last time anyone seems to remember. But yeah, it's been good. I mean, we've still been doing the show and everything. I've been buying little bits here and there, like a new keyboard for my iPad Pro, the Magic Keyboard thing for the smaller version.
Oh, you didn't have one before?
I had one for the big one, and I thought I need a matching one for the. Basically, I just wanted to spend some money.
Well, how well does that work with the iPad Mini since it's so much smaller?
Oh, not the Mini. By the 11-inch iPad Pro is what I mean.
Oh,
when I say Mini, I mean the Mini out of the 2 Pro versions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
But I mean, does having a smaller keyboard make a difference as compared to the bigger one?
No, it's
or do they both work pretty well?
Some of the keys off to the right-hand side. They're really small keys, and which you don't tend to use them that often. Well, I don't anyway. But no, the rest of it feels quite nice. And I did a video about it. I was going to do a whole YouTube unboxing and everything. And I set up a 2-camera system, and I was going to do multicam and all this. And I went through it all, and I recorded it all. And then afterwards, I realized I hadn't recorded any flipping audio, which is a bit embarrassing when you're a podcaster and you screw up the audio.
Yeah. I know about these things. I have on a number of occasions been like, oh crap, there's audio is really, really bad. Still released it, but you know.
It's not my worst one ever. I think it was our 100th show of Mac and Forth. And back then we used to use one of those services where everybody dials into a web page, and then the web page records everyone's audio and sends it back to them at the end of the show. So I was doing the show quite happily. After about 10 minutes, I started silencing. Everyone else could hear it. It did tell me. So when I got that recording back, it was all silent-y. So what I had to do, because it was the 100th episode and I'd got like the guys back for it and everything. Yeah. And what I had to do is I had to listen to the Cylon version. Then I had to, in post, say exactly the same lines.
Oh my God. How long was the show?
It was an hour-long show, as usual. And I had to do 50 minutes of that nonsense. And every time I wasn't speaking, it was like, oh, thank God I don't have to say anything. It took me forever to do. I never wanted to do that.
It's one of those things you get near the end of the show and you're like, shut up, me. Shut up. Stop talking.
Stop.
Knock it off. Well, let me ask you something. What mic are you using today?
I am using a Procaster. I moved up from the Podcaster, and I've gone to their XLR version, which is lovely. And I use it with a Wave XLR interface thing.
Wave? Who makes that? Is that
Elgato?
Elgato.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a little tiny thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely. I really want those Roadcasters, though, I've got to say.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I talked about that, and I actually got rid of the mixer that I had. I had a Yamaha mixer, but it wasn't USB, and it was fine, but I was never using it. I just never did use it. And with the setup I have now, I'm on this. I love this microphone, the Lewitt LCT 440 condenser microphone, and I have it going through a DBX 286S, which is a limiter compressor, and it's so sweet the way you can kind of dial in your sound with this. And then that outputs to a Motu M4 audio interface, which it's like in this room, the only one recording audio is me. Why do I need a mixer? I don't think I do. And I've got all this other gear.
Are you looking for an excuse, like to explain to the missus?
That's a $700 excuse, so it better be really good.
Well, the Rodecaster 2's just come out as well. So, but I'm actually going to someone's asked me to set up their podcasting studio, and they bought some stuff based on my recommendations. And one of the things they have bought is a Rode. What do I call it?
Oh, the Procaster one?
Yeah. And they've got some Shure SMB7 mics, and I've got to plug this all together in a couple of weeks and sell it all up. And oh, God.
Well, how many SM7Bs did they get?
4.
Why are they selling it all? Did they go in a different direction or just decide they didn't want to podcast and have more money than God?
They bought it, and I'm going to set up their studio.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying that they sold it all.
No, they bought it all.
Nice. So they obviously have a lot of money, because that's like
not anymore.
$1,700 in microphones alone.
Oh.
Did they go cameras too?
I'm not. They want to do cameras later on, and I said just walk before you start running, please. But
one thing I can recommend this.
Fresca. I don't even think they made that anymore.
I love Fresca. That kind of grapefruity taste. And we are not talking about any Mac stuff at all, people. We're just having a good time here, so you're just going to have to deal with it. One thing that I've found is you can spend a lot of money on video, but the thing to remember is, unlike audio, where you can hear a big difference between good and bad audio, with most video, especially on like YouTube or something like that, you're looking at HD quality at best. So why spend $600 to $800 on a standalone mirrorless body, and then probably a like amount for a lens for each one of the cameras that you want to put, plus everything else that you need in order to get it set up, when there are some really, really good HD quality webcams out there? I just picked up from Logitech. It's this little, I think it's called what is it called? It's like a little square webcam. It doesn't look like the 920s or the 930s. And it's USB-C out, and I've got it set up in such a way that I can do multiple cameras going into a Mac, into StreamYard through OBS as a virtual camera.
So I got to say, I got the Elgato face cam thing here in front of me, but I have got the,
and it looks great.
But the problem is, I wouldn't be able to suggest that to them, because it's an upper class situation, and if the people they hope to get in wouldn't be that impressed if I walked in. If they walked in and there's loads of little webcams.
So they're setting up a studio for multiple people to come in and do podcasts. Okay, so it's a business. It's not just a guy with a lot of money that wants to do a podcast.
No.
Okay.
Hopefully I'll be able to tell you more about it after it's done. So I can't really say too much at the moment. But
okay, well you should film some video as you're setting all that up.
Oh, well, I'll obviously get permission first.
Okay. Well, now that we've talked about all the, I don't even think I've got Gaz's snippets music. So we'll just have to roll with it.
Beep, beep, beep.
Boop, boop, boop. Okay, Gaz's snippets. Amazon is shutting down its Amazon Drive service, with users expected to move any files themselves manually with no assisted app from Amazon. But photos and videos will be stored automatically or be automatically moved to Amazon Photos.
Are they desperate for money?
I don't know. I mean, they've got the whole cloud service thing going on with what is that called? Q3, something like that. Whatever their enterprise cloud service is called.
AWS, isn't it? Also?
Yeah. Oh, okay. But
they've just put up their Prime prices as well, or about to. In September, put up their Prime across Europe anyway. I guess they need extra money to pay for that bloody horrible Lord of the Rings show that's coming.
I have no intention of watching that at all.
Well, first episode I will, obviously, just to see how bad it is.
The crazy thing is, they're not even really following the story of Lord of the Rings. They're taking out characters. It's like, why didn't you just call it something else and just make it another fantasy series? Why did you have to call it Lord of the Rings and then not actually follow the story of Lord of the Rings.
Because they bring the fan base. I think they bring the fan base with them. But then during the process of shooting it and saying the right things, they alienate the fan base who turn against them. And then they all get called all kinds of names. And then
hold on. Star Trek Discovery. Sorry.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Don't get me started. Don't.
Yeah.
Dare.
Star Trek Picard. You saw Lower Decks, though. Have you been watching Lower Decks?
Yeah, but I don't. I mean, it's good, and I do a lot more references in that. But it's not Star.
I'm sorry. I love Lower Decks. It's and the thing about Lower Decks, it's purposely irrelevant. But all of the extra stuff that they put in those shows of other Star Trek series, including the original animated series. There's actually a guy that does like ups and downs for each different Star Trek show, and I can't remember his name or what his YouTube channel is called. But at the end of saying, okay, well, for Star Trek Picard, it got this many ups and this many downs, and why, he also does this thing where he says, okay, and here's all the in references that were in this week's show. And for the most part, with Discovery and Picard, it's like 2 or 3 things. With Lower Decks, sometimes he has pages of things because there's just so much there. They actually had, and I think I talked about this on Thursday on Dave Ginsburg's In Touch with iOS show. If you've ever watched the original animated series, there was an episode called The Infinite Vulcan where Spock is like 50 feet high. And I don't remember the circumstances around it, but he was. And in this one episode of Lower Deck, when they're at some collector's house, there's a huge skeleton that's like pinned to the ceiling. And it's in a blue Star Trek uniform. And it's obviously Spock from this ultimate or infinite Vulcan from the animated series, which hardly anyone watched because it was so bad. But they took the time to put it in. Yeah. Okay, let's move off from that. Anything else about Amazon? I know did we go off the rails there, Carl?
That's it. I actually prefer what Amazon is doing for the most part, because you got that show Jack Reacher and you've got the Terminal List, and there's some really good shows on there. It's just that I don't know about Lord of the Rings. That's very obviously I'm a fan of Star Wars and Star Trek, but the most intense fans I've ever met are Lord of the Rings fans. And if you want to annoy them, because when you chat to them, they know so much about the lore from just these books. And I've tried the books. I couldn't get into them, unfortunately.
Well, I read them, but with these Uber fans, it's like, look, on page 300, paragraph 6, word 7, it was clearly distinguished that Gandalf was not gay. It's like, wait, hold on. What? What are you even talking about? What does it matter? It's a book. It's a fantasy series. Just let it go.
Way, they never even go to the toilet. So does that mean it's canon that no one has a poop?
Well, that's what they eat that elven bread, which apparently just stops you up or something. We're really.
That was only one story.
Yeah, took us that long. VMware, Carl, has a tech preview, which is somehow different from a beta, for M Series Macs to run Windows 11 in a virtual environment. And yes, all those things are accurate. This is the Intel version of Windows 11, as the ARM version isn't available for M Series Macs. So for everyone who wants to run Windows 11 on your M Series Macs, here's one way to eventually do it. Okay.
That was a pregnant pause. That was.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't find it at first. It was like, I know it's here. Okay. Apple, Carl, is going to put ads in the iOS App Store in the Today tab. These ads will be highlighted in blue to distinguish them from other recommendations, because apparently Apple is not making enough money in services. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I don't really pay attention to that page at all. I just go in and I normally know what I'm trying to
the
find.
Ones that you got. Yeah.
Finding what I want is a different issue altogether, even if you know the name of it.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't matter. It's like, well, here's the exact name and person who made it, and you've given me 20 different options. It's like, no, I just need that one. Can you put that one there? All right. Apple calls a letter that was submitted to the U.S. Congress claiming that there is absolutely no real risk associated with third-party side-loading apps disappointing and untrue. Apple claims that over 50% of known infected devices are Android, with Windows at 23%, the Mac at 9%, and iOS levels are so small that it fits into the category of other.
I think it's a terrible decision that they're making them do here.
Yeah, and there's actually who is it? There's an app that's out right now where you can do a subscription for it, and it goes outside, and it's built into the app, and it goes outside the Apple. Yes, Netflix. And there's a big warning all over it going, you can do this if you want, but Apple isn't going to be responsible. Apple isn't going to give you your money back if you do this based on going to something outside of the Apple ecosystem. So if it goes horribly, horribly wrong, don't come to us.
But that's not only that's just an external payment system. That's fine because you got like very reputable payment systems outside Apple's ecosphere, and they've been around for a long time, a lot longer than Apple in some cases. But the problem is they want to be able to sideload apps onto your phone, and that's okay as long as it's set up in such a way where I think this is how Android does it. They make it very clear if you want to flick this switch and allow side loading, you are on your own from that point on. There's no point running to Apple because you have decided to do this thing. And I'm sure 99.9% will be legit, but that 0.1% is a big statistic when we consider the width of the app world. And
well, I think that for the most, and I say this almost firmly tongue-in-cheek, I would like to think that iPhone users are smart enough to know that side-loading apps is a terrible idea.
They won't know.
And hopefully they won't do it.
They will, because most people who use phones are not. It's come on such a long way now that most people who use phones are just average people who just use a phone as a part of their life. It's just like the TV as far as they're concerned. And they've been led to believe nothing can go wrong with that phone unless they drop it. But that's the same with computers, really. You think about it. Why would anyone get a virus on their machine? Because they just go to sites where they should be going or install bits of software, legal software. Exactly. So people are always going to do it. And it's all right for us because we have this knowledge. However, if something went wrong with a car, if there was this thing and I thought, I'll put that on my car, because that will save me some money, and it was totally dodgy and effective and damage my brakes, I'd still go ahead and do it because I wouldn't know. But every mechanic would go, what are you doing?
You freaking idiot. Why did you do that?
We're just them. I mean, if it's your field of interest, you know. If it's not your field of interest, you just go along with the flow. And then they'll come to us and say, I thought that
fix
worked.
It.
And you'll go, no.
You're kind of on your own.
Yeah.
Okay. Apple Store visits are significantly less than pre and just after somewhat post COVID numbers. Apple stores received a lot of visitors in pre-COVID times and just after restrictions were lifted, averaging over 20K per month in some stores. New numbers are showing visitors less than 6K and even less in many other stores. Ooh, what have I got on my face? Sorry.
Your nose.
No, it's like something. It feels like there's a hair that's like just slightly.
Oh no! No chance of that. No chance of that.
Well, I know that's what. And when I had long hair, it would be like, oh, okay, well, obviously, maybe something from the back is flipped around to the front, but now it's just like gremlins.
Oh.
So what do you think about these Apple Store visits?
I don't know.
Is that a surprise?
I passed the London ones, and they still as packed to me as they always have been. In fact, they just opened a new one here in London, in Brompton Road near Harrods. I was meant to go down and film it today, but we're having train strikes in this country at the moment. So we had one yesterday, so I couldn't go then. And then today, my train line just wasn't running, so I couldn't go today either. So my plan is to go tomorrow, hopefully after work, if I don't have a mad day, and go and get some shots of this new store in the Brompton Road near Harrods.
So, if you're working tomorrow, you'll just do it while you're at work, or
no? I'll do it after work. I finish fairly early. I finish about 2:30 in the afternoon. So.
Oh, nice. But that means you start really early.
I start at 4:30 in the morning.
Oh God. Okay. Enough said. Yeah. All right. Because we almost have to talk about it. Apple's third quarter numbers for 2022 have been released. While supply constraints affected their sales overall, they still made a crap ton of money. And that's all that I think we need to say about that. You got anything else before we take a break there, Karl?
No, not really. I mean, you're right about the money. It was surprising they made that much. There's massive constraints, as you say, on their hardware at the moment. I think if you try and order an M2 MacBook Air, you're still waiting a long, long time before that thing's even going to ship. I believe there's still people waiting on Ultras that haven't shipped yet and things like that. So, but what are you going to do when the country you're depending on, it keeps locking down all their people?
Well, this is why, and I would be very surprised if Tim Cook isn't looking to diversify away from certain countries and moving some production to other certain countries. Not necessarily the United States, because why would he do that? But at least not have all your eggs in one basket. All right. Karl, you've been on this show once or twice, so you probably know how we normally get out of a segment.
Yes. If everyone would kindly stand by, and we'll be right back.
And welcome everyone to the second section, or no, this side. Go like this. I know. I was gonna say, don't do it the other way, because that's bad. That's a bad thing. So people on YouTube, just turn your head right before I did that, even though it's past now. Anyway, what we're going to talk about for our main topic on this show is just how many Macs Apple has sold and the rise and fall of, and I actually have some numbers here. Let me get these up. Some numbers. I don't have them in a spreadsheet. So, Karl, can you guess how many Macs Apple sold in 2003?
I've heard it's more than 7.
Barely, but yes. Right. It was 3.1 million.
Oh, right.
And that was in 2003, but with the switch to Intel processors, and we're seeing kind of the same thing now with the switch to the M series. When they made the switch to the Intel processors in 2005 to 2007, sales rose through the roof for the beleaguered company. And at the time, they were still pretty much beleaguered. 2009, so 6 years after the 3.1 million sold in 2003. In 2009, they tripled their sales to 10 million. And in 6 years later, in 2015, they broke the 20 million mark. That's a lot of Macs. That's 17 million more Macs sold. And it wasn't even their biggest seller. It wasn't even the thing that made them the most money, which of course has been the iPhone since 2010, 2011. And but the sales of Macs have just gone crazy.
Well, wasn't it the iMac when Steve came back and he threw away all that clutter. So for example, whenever I see someone do the history of the Mac and they bring out all these beige boxes, they look so unimpressive. I gotta say. They're horrible. I mean, even I had an iMac at one point, just as a piece of art, effectively, because it used to whine so much. The hard disk and power unit used to whine so much when you turned it on. But yeah, I mean, this was back in the time where I loathed Apple because I thought they were overpriced. But yeah,
well, they were.
Well, absolutely. But even I could look at that and go, yeah, that looks pretty good. And you had that fantastic advertising campaign of the two guys and
get I'm a Mac, you're a PC.
Yeah. And obviously, showing how easy it was to switch over from one to another. I'm not sure. That must have been in the 90s. Where was that?
No, it was mid 2000s. It was that I think those started just before they made the switch. It was with Justin Long and John Hodgman.
Yeah.
Just before, at least here. I know in some parts of the world they had different guys. Didn't you have like your own pair?
We had the guys from the Peep Show do it over here. I've forgotten his name. David. Forgotten his name. Damn it. Anyway, we had the guys from the Peep Show. It'll come to me at some point, probably.
Okay. And then there was another set of guys in Japan that did them there. But they were all basically, except for some cultural differences, especially for the Japanese ones, they were all basically the same commercials.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
No, I was just saying, when you consider how poorly Macs were selling, as you said, especially in the 90s, when they had the horrible Performa, Centris, and Quadra lines, where the only real difference between most of them was just the software that was bundled with them. There were, the Quadra lines might have like a better GPU or something like that, but there wasn't really any huge differences. And what made it worse was you would have like a Performa 410, which is like a little pizza box Mac. And then they would get a different software bundle for it. Same machine, nothing about the hardware had changed at all, but it had a different software bundle. And now it's the Performa 415. And so many Apple dealers at the time would be stuck with these older machines that they couldn't sell because it said Performa 410 instead of Performa 415. And Apple had, there were so many things wrong with Apple back then. Apple had sales numbers that each one of their third-party dealers had to meet. And if they had a bunch of machines that they couldn't sell, well, too bad for you. You obviously didn't order enough machines or ordered too many, and you need to do a better job at that. So, yeah, that wasn't really good.
No.
But with the move to Intel, where Apple, especially when you consider that this was pre-iPhone, but it was post-iPod. So a lot of people who had iPods, this was kind of the gateway drug for them to start getting invested in Apple. And when Apple came out with machines that were basically using the same hardware that their Windows machines were doing, and with Boot Camp, they could still boot into a Windows environment, their sales skyrocketed. And kind of the same thing happened when they made the switch to the M series, because there was like from 2016, 2017 to 2019, there wasn't a whole lot of innovation going on.
No, sort of Intel dropped the ball a little bit because their solution seemed to be, they keep coming up with all these different lakes that they were producing for their chips. And they're I think they were trying to get the nanometers down to like 5 nanometers or whatever. And it didn't quite work. So their solution in the meanwhile was just to put more cores in all the time. And of course, the more cores you put on, the more power it will drain potentially.
And the more
Apple
heat.
And Apple started going, hang on a minute. And they were, obviously they were annoyed with waiting. And when the phones and the pads came out with their processors in, some people thought, eventually Apple's going to switch their Apple computers over to these new ARM processors. One particular person, I remember saying that, but then he changed his mind, and then next week they did it. So
exactly. I don't know who that could have been.
Oh, I don't know.
I kind of advocated for that for years and years. And then as soon as I changed my mind, Apple's like, that Mac Parrot guy, he's an idiot, but we're going to take this suggestion.
But, Apple's always been small, always been like the small player against Windows, because like the way Windows is built by so many different companies, only one person makes Apple computers nowadays, and that's Apple.
Yep.
So, they can only release a certain amount of units a year, certain designs. They've got builds that they, have to hit on a fairly regular basis, not every year, obviously. But the competition is every other week a new PC is being released by one company or another. But I know when I got my first Mac, which was a second generation MacBook Air, I was hooked. That was it. I was not ever going back to Windows. And I never have, and I've never felt any compunction to go back to Windows. Now I know I have to pay a hefty price, but then the other day I was specking out getting possibly a Windows for gaming, and I soon ranked up to like $2,000. I was thinking, well, bloody hell, a Mac's cheaper than that now.
I actually went to AliExpress and I got this low profile Windows PC that has and it's not a great graphics card. It's like a GTX 1650, and it's about the size of a Mac Mini, and it was around $900 with 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD.
Mm-hmm. And
for the games that I'm running, which is basically just stuff off Steam, it runs great, and that's all I use it for. That's I have my my M series Mac Mini and this Windows PC hooked up to two different HDMI inputs on one of my monitors, and I just switch between them when I want to play some games. And I've got a separate, and it's so gaudy. I've got a separate keyboard and mouse with all the RGB that you could possibly stand.
Oh dear, you're one of them.
Didn't mean to. I honestly, and again, we're kind of going off the topic here, but that's okay. I was looking for, I didn't want a wireless keyboard because I was already doing wireless with the Mac, and I didn't want multiple keyboards and multiple wireless mice and all the multiples on the same desk going to different computers. So I was looking for a USB keyboard that had a USB port that I could plug in a USB monitor or a USB trackball or mouse. Okay. I'm sorry, losing my mind. And finally found one, but unfortunately it was like one of these RGB monstrosities that, just shows different colors as my gaming experience goes on. And I could probably figure out a way to turn it off, but I don't use it enough to care that much. And the computer itself doesn't really light up. It's a little tiny thing. If I had, no, I'm not going to bother. I was going to say I could bring the camera down and show it to you, but it's about the size of a M series Mac Mini, and it works great.
The only reason I'd want a Windows machine is for gaming, but now you're getting some nice alternatives come out. So I was looking at that Steam Deck unit, for example, and the highest grade one is like about £500. You can't order it until October or something like that, though. But that's like a handheld device that gives you access to all your Steam library, and they're adapting more and more games to it all the time. And that's got.
Well, can you connect it up to an external monitor so that you don't have to look at it just a little tiny screen? Okay, well that's not bad. Like That'd be a lot cheaper too.
Yeah, exactly. Because that's all I want it for. I just want something, because you're not going to get viruses and stuff, I hope, from Steam. I would hope not anyway. Yeah. But But that's all I'm going to use it for. I'm going to use it for some gaming. Now, most of my gaming, as we've talked about on the show a few times, I stream games now. So I use GeForce Now, and I use Stadia and Xbox, Xbox Cloud, I think they call it. And they're coming along. Like, for example, I've got a little network to USB-C adapter, and I've hooked that up to my actual network, and I stream to my iPads through the USB-C port, and I'm getting 500 input, and the picture is lovely. It is so good. I think I sent you an example of what it looks like when you're playing.
Yeah.
And it works so well, and I love it. And it's there.
I've tried it.
An Xbox controller. You got to have a good connection. That's all it is. You got to have a good.
Well,
connection.
I've got like 100 plus up and down. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe
but you got to be close.
Something else.
You got to be close to one of the server, sections as well. My one apparently is in London, so it's about 7 miles away from where I am, if I can believe what they say.
Yeah.
So I'm not too far from it. So it works a treat for me. I mean, if you're middle of nowhere, when I go down to the coast in a few weeks' time, I'll try it there, see if I get a similar experience. I doubt it somehow, but where I am now,
latency was one of the big problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So, and for some games it doesn't matter. Like real-time strategy games, it doesn't really matter. If it's a twitchy game like sort of Call of Duty type game, then obviously it does matter. But
Left 4 Dead, that kind of thing. Well, let's wrap up. I don't know how did we end up getting so off track? I blame Karl.
Well, no, it's just like, so the point was that they think that there's a problem. There's potentially a problem because Apple computers have seen a decline in sales, but then it's obvious why, because people can't produce the stuff. We've had years now where factories have been closed down, or the logistics have been shut down, or people in retail have been shut down. So we can't rely totally on Amazon and all the poor workers that work 23 hours a day. So there's got to be some give. So of course it's ridiculous, the world at the moment. So if there weren't those constraints in play, Apple would have sold far more than what they're, with these new chips that they put in them. Every YouTuber is excited, saying, "Look how much it's." Still to this day, I still love someone buying the base model MacBook Air M1 and then putting it against the old Mac Pro that's been specced out to about $9,000 worth of kit, and they're going, "Wow, can it beat this?"
And it does.
It does on some bits, but not in longevity, because obviously it has to power down. But for that burst, it's fairly close. And, I always thought, I'm never quite sure what point they're trying to prove. But
well, I've seen similar ones with an iMac Pro, and they were comparing that to, I think, an M1 Mac Mini 16 512 or 16 1 terabyte. And in DaVinci, it was close. I think that the Intel iMac Pro, which was like a near top of the line iMac Pro, still beat the Mac Mini, but it's an order of magnitude of, the iMac Pro was about $10,000 and the Mac Mini was about $1,500. So, okay, you saved about a minute in rendering times in DaVinci.
Exactly.
Is that worth $8,000 to you?
Or the other one is where they'll get a fully spec'd out Windows machine, that's sounds like a hairdryer because the fans are going so fast on it. And they go, well, it's slightly beating the M1, which is silent.
Yeah.
I've seen that a few times as well.
Well, last word on all of this. In 2021, Apple sold nearly 30 million Macs, and that was when they were in the process. The full M1 series was out. I think the Studio was out by that time as well. But this year they're looking to be at about the 20 million mark. But as both Karl and I were saying, it's really due to supply constraints as compared to people not wanting to buy them. You just can't get them. And if you have to wait 6 weeks or longer for the computer that you want, may as well just grab an M1 Mac Mini, which, again, is going to suit the needs of about 95% of the people that are out there. I mean, I could get a Mac Studio. I could. My credit rating, as stupid as it is, would allow me to get one, but I just can't justify it with how good the M1 Mac Mini is.
Well, again, it's the same old story, isn't it? Like, you get people who do podcasts like we do.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, yeah, I've got to have the top stuff. I've got to have the fully maxed out thing. Like, for example, when I say all the time on my show, I'm using my MacBook Air base model there. I'm doing a show, recording 4 audio streams and doing all this, that, and the other, doing a video, well, an audio conference. 13% normally. I mean, this one involves video, me and you talking. It's at 27%.
And most of that is probably Chrome.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because we have to use Chrome to do this chat thing.
Yeah. Or Brave works as well, but still, any of the Chromium browsers are gonna use a lot more resources. All right, we are gonna skip right over to a Purloin section for this week, which is Gaz's tips.
Hit it. Gaz's tips. Mostly. Gaz's tips. Mostly. Gaz's tips. It's time for Gaz's tip.
Yes, it is time for Gaz's tips. Karl.
Yes.
Have you ever copied and pasted text from the web into a Word or Pages document only to see all of that text vomited, literally vomited across the screen with a bunch of formatting that you probably didn't see when you copied the text, but the Mac dutifully brought along for the ride when you pasted it?
Yes, many times until I learned this shortcut.
Well, not Karl, because he already knows it, but everyone else can easily stop that nonsense by using the paste and match style command instead of just paste. So, sure, Command V is easy, but how much time did you spend afterwards getting rid of all of that extra crap that came along with it? So instead of just hitting Command V, hit Option Command Shift at the same time, and then hit the V. And that will bring just the text. It'll paste it in and match the style of whatever document that you put it into. Would you agree with that, Karl?
I would agree so much that my head would fall off from all the nodding.
Yes, I thought you might.
Hit it. That's the end of Gaz's tips. That's the end of Gaz's tips. That's the end of Gaz's tips.
Okay, is that the end of the tip?
Will you let me finish?
Gaz, you are absolutely right.
Okay, well, we're moving right along. Neither one of us. Do you have a for pick's sake this week, Karl? You don't have to. If you don't have one, don't worry about it.
The only one I've got is if you use if you got a joystick like an Xbox controller or PlayStation controller, give Call of Duty Mobile a go, but don't pay for anything. Don't buy skins or loot boxes or anything like that. Just play the game. It's awesome. I love it. I'm addicted.
Call of Duty with a Xbox controller?
Yeah, on iOS. And it's
really?
fantastic.
Oh, okay. I hadn't even thought of that's on the service that you were just talking about a little while ago.
No. It's an individual app. But, you know, they constantly try and throw loot boxes at you and what do I call them? Battle passes and things like this. Don't buy any of that nonsense. Just literally play the game. And, start off in the deathmatch type things and then move up to the battle royales. It's awesome. I just love it so much.
And that's an iOS game, or is that
an iOS game? Free, totally free, but in-app purchases, but don't bother with them.
I'll have to check that out. I have a couple of links here, and it's the same links I've had for a while now. There's a site called timeout.com, and they have a list of helpful Ukrainian donation sites, and there will be a link in the show notes that you can go and look at all those. But the two in particular that we highlight each week is the Ukrainian Red Cross, redcross.org, and blah, blah, blah. All the rest of that. Links will be in the show notes. And Doctors Without Borders. Please, if you can, give generously to both of those organizations, helping out all the people that are suffering in the Ukraine. I know we have some feedback, but I forgot to download it, so that will have to wait until next week. I saw that there were some, because it's been 2 weeks, 3 weeks since we've done a MyMac episode, and I didn't do any of them for the 900th show because we were just so busy doing other stuff there. I swear we will get to all of that stuff because I really, really do appreciate it when we get feedback from people, especially when they use our Skype telephone number. If you would like, go ahead.
I was going to say, you must have about 24 from Greg. I
love Greg. He's so great. I can always count on Greg to send us some good feedback. If you'd like to help support the show, you can go to our Patreon, which is patreon.com/MacParrot. You can go and buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/MacParrot or pay a pal. You can pay a pal at paypal.me/MacParrot. And I don't have all those sound effects.
I do it manually. I missed the first one. You blew straight past it.
That's okay. Carl, if people wanted to get a hold of not me, but you, how would they do so?
Well, you can come and listen to me and also normally Alan, Steve, and then either Dean, Barry, or Mark over on the Mac and Forth show every week, normally released on a Friday morning, early in the morning. Or I'm back on Twitter because I'm waiting to see what Elon does with it. You can get me over there at Claw0101, or you can follow us at Mac and Forth as well over there.
Okay, and there'll be links in the show notes because Carl is going to put those in so that I can put them in, or he's going to make me suffer. Go and find them, you stupid.
I never asked you to do that when you come on mine. I have to go and do it myself.
Well, I can just copy and paste this whole thing. If you want to get a hold of me, all you have to do is you can send me an email to guy at mymac.com or podcast at vertshark.com. I have a couple of Twitter handles, either MacParrot or VertShark over there on the Twitters. You can get a hold of Gaz. He is Gaz at mymac.com. We are also Gazmaz together. No, that's Gaz's Twitter. Wow. Words are hard. Gazmaz on Twitter. You can also get a hold of both of us on Twitter, Guy and Gaz, GUYANDGAZ, over there on Twitter. Feedback at mymac.com. That will go to Tim, who will forward it on to us. And we have a Skype telephone number that this week I ignored and didn't get any of the calls, but I will get them for the next time. There will be no sad Hulk music on this show. And that number is 1 or +1 outside of the United States, 703-436-9501. That number again is 1 or +1 outside of the United States, 703-436-9501. And if you have some kind of weird fetish where putting a 1 or a +1 in front of a telephone number is just too much for you to handle, you can just go right to the Skype application and dial 703-436-9501. And Carl, I'd like to say thank you. Thank you to you for being on the show this week and putting up on all of the usual nonsense that I do on this show. Gaz has put up with it now for about 12 years.
I know, he tells me regularly.
It says a lot about the state of his life at this moment. But I would also like to thank all of the wonderful listeners. Thank you so very, very much for downloading and listening to the MyMac.com podcast. We really, really do appreciate it when you do so. And Carl, I think that this week in particular, though it would have been better if Gaz was here instead of me, that we were good enough. And I think that this week would have been better if Gaz was here, that we were smart enough, and that Wilf gone it, find that puppy, woof, woof, wilf. People like us.
Now, before I read the funny language one, are you sure this is a language and you just didn't fall asleep on the keyboard?
It very well could have been me falling asleep on the keyboard, but to the best of my knowledge, this is a real language.
Siuj fi homoj sio ni iris our Macstock. I got one. Carvi Devis poti mascon estas amoso de paglioj.
Yeah. See, and we don't have to say what that's really saying in English because people who know what this language is already know.
Oh my God, it's shocking. It's shocking.
It's so awful.
We ain't got a gas joke.
No, we don't have a gas joke. And I should have had one ready. I don't know why I didn't. Horse walks into a bar. Bartender says, "Why the long face?"
No, it's ouch. He says ouch. Wasn't that painful?
Yeah, it's a dad joke, though. End.
So you can all go home and there's nothing to worry about. Get out of here now. Go on. Go on home and go home.